Well, we're still hanging out with our good friend, Mr. Dennis Asiimwe, special friend of the show. He's with us here on the Fatboy Show on your number one station, RX Radio. Hoping that you are doing great today. And, Dennis always has a lot of interesting opinions that he likes to share with us. He is an astute observer of the human condition. And on social media, he's famous for his, shall I say, scathing diatribes against the state of human relationships. What, you think I am bad? This guy is like 10 times worse. You need to follow him on social media, although I think you've toned down lately.
I barely have the time anymore.
Oh, so is that what has saved us, that you're just too busy? Okay, I wanted to know what you think of what appears to be a particular dating and mating strategy that I have observed in women, and you can let me know if this makes sense or if it doesn't. But women employ a cyclical dating strategy wherein they oscillate between the alpha male and the beta male. So if they are currently dating an alpha male, and this would be like a guy that they find super attractive, the relationship is very sexual and emotional and passionate. Essentially, like, she's really into the guy. It's for her, it's the real thing, right? And usually such relationships won't last very long. They'll be very tumultuous. And in the event that such a relationship ends, she normally gravitates more towards the nice guy, who is probably one that can provide more security, right? Because after all, that was what was lacking in the previous one. And then eventually she grows bored of that relationship. And then she gives the dude the whole "it's not you, it's me" speech. I need to find myself speech. Because when she's with a beta male, she kind of just forgets who she is. Partly because the beta male is not really good at pushing her emotional buttons. And so she just sort of feels like she's suffocating. And so she needs to break off from the relationship and live it up. And live it up she shall. She will dive into what you could call a minor whole phase of sorts, just from one fling to the next. And you might have encountered a woman in such a phase of her life where, it might seem like it's going somewhere. And she says, "Nah, I'm not looking for anything serious right now." And that's because she's in that phase, living her best life, in wanting to explore and experience. And that only lasts for so long until she starts to feel like, well, okay, all my friends are posting pictures of their amazing holidays they're taking with their husbands, or I'm seeing wedding photographs. Maybe it's time for me to settle down. And then she will go back in search of the so-called beta male, and the cycle repeats. She gets back into a relationship with that guy, and before long, once again, "it's not you, it's me. I'm feeling suffocated. I need to go find myself." And then she's back on the carousel, looking for alpha male D energy. So do you think there's any truth to that? Is that something that you have noticed, or is it just all in my head?
I think there's some truth to that. I think of the two genders, women are far more introspective. They don't appear to be introspective from a rational perspective, but they do encourage, or tend to encourage self-examination amongst themselves. And because of this self-examination process, they've gone about the process of templating, and they template men a lot.
What does that mean, to template a man?
I mean, like, basically, like, let's say, if I'm templating the kind of girl I'm into, I'd say I'm into a girl who has some survival skills, who can work in the kitchen, who can work a little black dress and heels, that sort of thing. That's my template.
Mm-hmm.
Women have been shredding the templates every time they create one. They will come up with a template. They're like the creative directors. So they'll come up with a template, shred it, come up with another one, shred that, come up with another one, and shred that. And because of that constantly turning templates, they essentially genuinely don't really have a template. And it's very important for men who are involved in romantic liaisons of any sort to actually understand this. This is one of the reasons why most men will never understand what the man that your ex moves on to. You be genuinely puzzled.
I actually, well, you see, because I feel like it's funny. I feel like I understand what you're saying, but in fact, it might lead to a different conclusion. I actually think they do have a template, because what is a template? A template is essentially just a framework of, you could say it's a framework of qualities that can be equally applied or projected onto any random person. So in other words, the men are not the templates. The men are sort of blank slates, at least in her mind. And then she approaches the relationship and projects that template of expectations on each boyfriend she dates, so that the boyfriends can be radically different from one another in form and substance. But she approaches every relationship as though it's the same person she's dating. In her eyes, or in her head, I should say, she's seeing the same person. And so when you are in the honeymoon phase of a relationship, when she's super kinky and super sexual with you and super doing everything you want, completely compliant, it's because she's in love with that template that she's projected onto you. And of course, because you are not an exact fit to the template, because it's really all in her head, when she starts to notice over time all the ways that you deviate from a template, is when she starts to grumble and be like, but this guy, what's up? And she'll try and hammer you back into shape. That's what some people might call the nagging, until she realizes, you know what, I guess I made a mistake. And then she's going to find the next person and be totally super duper in love with him in just the same way that she was in love with you when she met you, essentially because she's in love with the same person, the same template. Each different man is simply a slate onto which she will project that template.
That's another possibility, but it comes up to the same evolving conclusion. There's a lack of consistency in what women are allowed, rather go about doing within liaisons or relationships or whichever. And so it cuts, it's actually like an interesting phenomenon I've noticed across girls, whether I'm dating them or whether I'm watching who somebody is dating. You'll notice the difference is so wonderfully drastic. And I think there was a feminist who once said, I forget her name, she was a pretty feminist actually, a Caucasian. She said something about how civilization has been essentially dependent on men, because men tend to be far more predictable, far more stable in their choice-making process, and far more reliable. Yeah, women actually, it's almost trendy for them to refer to men as being predictable and look at it as a flaw. And yet predictability is actually important for existence.
For the founding of any institutions, for the running of any society, for maintaining a civilization.
The fact
you need predictability.
You need we need to have gravity, because we need to have a predictable gravitational force on the planet. We need to have predictable electromagnetic atmosphere around us to survive from solar radiation. I mean, we need predictability. But modern society has taught women to thrive on
chaos,
on chaos and the erratic nature of existence, and so they thrive within that particular space, and it's something that men have to actually literally simply accept.
I think Hollywood celebrates that aspect of the human female psyche, where if you've noticed in every film you watch, the person trying to maintain order is the villain, right? And the hero or heroine is always someone that's trying to buck the trend. I mean, name your movie. That's just how it is.
That is true.
Right? Of course, they never show us how in bucking the trends, it leads to societal collapse, which is usually something that happens maybe further down the road, but usually that is how it's portrayed. And so you can see that the world has kind of embraced that way of thinking, and social media has only amplified it, because social media rewards living in the moment. The dopamine hit you get when your video goes from a viral video. So that's what everyone's living. Everyone's now living moment to moment.
Yes, and this perfectly fits the female narrative.
So this is why it's just so frustrating. I remember a time, and this is a story I like to share always, where you take a girl out to a bar somewhere, and she has the time of her life. Let's say, the music is great, the food is great, the service is great. So she's like, wow, thank you so much, tonight was so amazing. And as a guy, in your head, you're thinking, okay, looks like she likes this place. Maybe we'll come back next week. And then when it's next week, and then you want to take her out, and she's like, where are we going? And she's like, you tell her we're going to that place we went last week. And she'll be like, yeah, but we were there last week. Isn't it anywhere else we can go? Whereas if it's a guy, if I were to take you out, or we were to hang out for a drink at some bar or somewhere, and we say, hey, let's hit this joint, and we get there and the music is good and the food is good and the waiters are good and the waitresses are sexy, that's probably going to be our bar for the next 20 years. Every Friday, we will be known by first name by the waiters. They'll even know what we drink. They'll have our seats reserved. It'll be our place. This is how men are.
Exactly. You walk in and you don't even need to mention your order.
You know, I've never heard of a woman saying, "Oh, that's my bar." That's more a guy thing. See,
definitely.
So, meaning for them, it's whimsical. Everything is fleeting. Everything is chaotic and has to keep changing. Which just, I guess, to my point, it just lends itself to that cyclical nature of a relationship where for them, just a situation being constant, just either terrifies them or bores them to where now they just have to look for new ways. Now, men, this is not to say that men therefore are better per se in relationships. I mean, a man can cheat and can stray, but typically if he has a woman who is fairly content with, even if he may stray from time to time or add on a mistress here and there, he's not going to automatically want to dispose of the woman he has.
And he'll stray predictably.
And he will typically stray predictably. And if ever that marriage falls apart, it's usually because the wife has found out about the straying and is giving him a hard time about it.
No, I mean, the guy, for example, with the guy will have an affair with his secretary or with his PA or with the maid. The wife will have an affair with either his boss or with a border guy or with the president of the Rotary Club. Or I mean, you simply can't pinpoint it.
And for her, she will tend to. I feel like women are more inclined to seek to replace men in their lives, whereas men are more intent to add to the women in their lives. So men
to supplement.
Men build harems. Women replace.
Yes.
And so that is why I think their relationships end up being more cyclical. And I don't know if there's anything to be gained by them acknowledging that, but at least for me, what it helps me understand is that if I am with a woman, I usually take the time to assess how is it that she sees me. What type of guy is she seeing me as? Is she seeing me as, hey, I'm in my whole phase, so I like your vibe, let's rock for a little bit? Or is she looking at me as provider, potential long-term partner? I feel like in understanding my role in her life, it allows me to manage my expectations better.
It does, because once you're comfortable with the idea that you're just there to serve out that particular phase, you probably have some significant peace of mind. Yeah,
because I once did fall in love with a woman who was in her whole phase, let's just say, or in her I don't want to be attached phase. And, you know, I was disappointed because, you know, it was this torrid, heated, passionate fling, and it was just quite intense. And for me, being the inexperienced man I was at the time, I was like, this is the true love. I want to be with her. But to her, she's like, yo, I just actually right now I'm just on a break from my relationship. And actually she was on a break. She just had a fight with her boyfriend, and I think she told him we need space, which, by the way, guys, if anytime a lady tells you need space, please don't ever assume that she's at home reading novels as she cries into her pillow thinking about you.
She's not.
How to fix your problems. No, she's she's out there writing.
It's the farthest thing.
She's out there writing several other gentlemen's crotches. You better believe that. And so, that's how I got played in that situation. And if I had known that actually she just sees me as that kind of a person, I certainly would not have invested all of the emotions. I perhaps would have behaved in more ungentlemanly ways in our intimate encounters. Because, you see, I was in love. I was treating her like a delicate
flower
that deserved to be pedestalized. And yet, she probably would have been best served in a different capacity.
I mean, romance as a notion is built around the idea of stability, and which is why for a long time I've been arguing that romance is a male notion, actually. It's not...
It's the purview of men.
Yes.
Because it rests on
stability and continuity.
Yeah. Well, ain't that a shame? Well, here we are just talking about some of these things that intrigue us. And if you feel similarly intrigued, just let us know. You can go to our Twitter or Facebook and tell us what you think. about the nature of relationships. Do you believe that for ladies it is more cyclical, or is it more sort of static, as might be the case for a man? Let us know. And if you're watching this on YouTube later on, you can just post your comments just down below. And keep listening to your number one station, RX Radio.